Hey everybody, it's Hummingbird027 here. Today is Friday, March 6th, 2020, and I have a lot of coronavirus news for you today. Pretty much that's all the news there is out there right now. So, top of the list. This one caught my eye because it's a substantial number. 100,000 Israelis expected to be in quarantine with the tough new rules. Coming from the World Israel News site, Israel's health ministry took unprecedented steps on Wednesday to delay the spread of the deadly coronavirus, sending 50,000 into quarantine with harsh new rules that could see as many as 100,000 forced into home isolation for a 2-week period. The huge spike in quarantine numbers is the result of a new list of countries put on the list for which home isolation is required. So Israelis returning from Germany, Switzerland, Austria, France, and Spain now fall under these new guidelines. The ministry also announced that events larger than 5,000 people will be banned across the country. These new rules will have an impact on celebrations for the upcoming holiday of Purim, which is a fasting day in remembrance of Hadassah in the book of Esther, and how she was able to save the Jewish race by being brave and going before the king while not being summoned. So far, only 15 Israelis have been identified as carriers of the coronavirus, 4 of whom were infected by the same returning traveler from Italy. Itamar Grotto, who is the Deputy Director General of Health Ministry, who himself is in isolation after returning from Japan, where he helped Israelis under quarantine abroad, the cruise ship Diamond Princess, said at the moment there isn't a large sickness in Israel. It's mainly outside Israel, and we're focused on the people coming from there. In other news from Breitbart.com, French government has seized all stocks of face masks. Thousands have been stolen from the hospitals. French President Macron ordered the seizure of all stocks and future production of medical face masks in the face of a growing threat from coronavirus and a spat of looting of masks from medical facilities. That government had previously asked the public not to buy masks unless they were in a group that needed them, but the instructions seems to have been avoided. He's not really in good standing with the public anyway, so why would they listen to him now? So this move by the president came as reports emerged of thousands of masks being stolen from hospitals in France, presumably from resale on the black market. Also, the World Health Organization, is also calling for action to be taken to stop hoarding of medical supplies, which it says is putting healthcare workers at risk. You know what? I say in capitalism, which is the best functioning system the world has ever seen, that just means that somebody needs to become an entrepreneur and make more masks. It's funny how they just kind of like seize up everything instead of trying to promote jobs and welfare and economic freedom. It's just weird how they do everything sometimes. Anyway, so many articles to report on. Washington State reports the 15th coronavirus death in the U.S., and Apple is asking their employees to work from home. Just a quick run through of some of the stats. You'll get them from ZeroHedge.com, who has live updates. That link is in the description box below. The CDC has tested fewer than 2,000 Americans, The Atlantic is reporting. Also, Germany reports 90 new cases, bringing their total to 534. University of Washington will move all classes online for the rest of the semester. McDonald's has canceled its franchises convention. Iraqis officials have reported their 3rd death Latin America airline employee has confirmed as Peru's first corona case, which is really kind of scary because this is coming all into the agenda, folks. And I just want to put this little piece of information in your thoughts right now. All it's going to take is this outbreak to become so incredibly abused that they will probably start demanding that people have vaccination, that they will be vaccinated before they can even board a plane, go to work anymore, you name it, folks, even going to the grocery store. I think there's probably going to be legislation coming up that's going to look something very horrifically similar to this. New York cases are climbing to 33. A baggage handler at Heathrow has tested positive. Madrid closes their nursing homes. 5 schools in Pennsylvania closed. Trump visit to the CDC is back on. The WHO is stating that it is a false hope that this virus will disappear when summer arrives. They're also saying that this is mutated now into a new strain. So complicating matters when it comes to developing a vaccine is the fact that COVID-19 has mutated. Scientists have confirmed the virus has evolved into 2 strains, the L type and the S type. The latter is the old version of the virus and appears to be milder and less infectious. The L type can spread quickly, and scientists from Peking University School of Life Sciences and the Institute Pasteur of Shanghai say it could be more aggressive. The S and L mutations in COVID-19, where the virus protein spikes, said Dr. Stephen Griffith, if the Israelis really do get the first vaccinations out by April, which they think that might be happening, it may have no effect, folks. And further still, this thing could be mutating way beyond a vaccine. It would be just like the flu. You could be getting the flu shot yearly thinking you're covered, but still end up getting the flu. Why? Because the flu mutates so quickly and dramatically that they can't keep track and they can't keep up with the mutations. So folks, you know, I am not a supporter of taking vaccines because your body is a temple for the Holy Spirit. Just saying, I'm not a doctor, but you know what? I'm not taking any of their vaccines. Point in fact, our bodies were made by Yahweh, and it's designed that when we get a cold or an illness or a virus, that our bodies produce the antibodies to fight it off, folks. You know, I don't want to be harsh, but people do die from this. People have been doing this for thousands of years, since the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. I think I've reached that point of walking with the Lord where my faith is secure in Yahweh, that if it's my time to go, it is my time to go. I have no qualms about leaving because I'll get to be with Him, God willing. At the same time, I'm going to have faith that He's going to see me through it. So, you know, it's all up to you how you guys do your own health care. As I said, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just kind of telling you what I'm going to be doing in the face of this weird crisis. The Federal Reserve to quarantine dollars from Asia on COVID-19 transmission concerns. Following reports that Beijing had quarantined dirty cash, again, there's those keywords, dirty cash. They're trying to get rid of cash so they can put a mark on you and you will not be able to buy or sell without this mark. The Federal Reserve is now doing the same out of fear that the dollars in circulation from Asia could contain COVID-19. The Fed spokesperson told Reuters on Friday that quarantining physical dollars that it repatriates from Asia before recirculating them in the U.S. financial system has begun. The new precautionary measure is to limit the transmission of the virus in the U.S. There are no specifics of how the dollars are to be sanitized, but bear in mind that even before COVID-19 outbreaks, a 2014 study done by researchers at New York University identified 3,000 types of bacteria on dollar bills due to how widely and frequently they change hands. Also, while all these people are hoarding cash back to clean it, possibly through ultraviolet light, one of the world's major NGOs, quote-unquote, George Soros, is seizing this opportunity to proclaim the virtues of paperless money. Not a surprise, folks. They want a cashless society. And speaking of money, all major U.S. banks have begun contingency plans, splitting trades, sales groups, and virus response. So this is an update from Zero Hedge on the heels of J.P. Morgan's decision to begin its resilience plan. A number of the rest of the U.S. majors have also started their own contingency plans. So Citibank is sending hundreds of traders and salespeople to its backup site in Rutherford, New Jersey, starting Monday as part of its coronavirus planning. CNBC's Hugh Sun reports in a tweet citing its source. Bank of America is splitting its trading force, sending some of its employees to its backup office in Stamford, Connecticut. Also, Morgan Stanley is moving about half of its institutional securities traders to its disaster recovery site in Westchester, New York. Also, they are beginning to shift London-based sales and trading staff to Heathrow's site as part of its contingency plan. Some quick news headlines if you want to check out zerohedge.com. Another nightmare at sea. California scrambles to test passengers aboard Grand Princess cruise ship. Here we go again. Also, Costco runs out of toilet paper and won't have any more for centuries. There is a little flyer here that says, we are out of toilet paper, more arriving on March 1st, 25,020 in the year. So that was pretty funny. But seriously, folks, you might want to stock up on some toilet paper if it's in your area. It's kind of a necessity these days. In other news, Utah creates surveillance panopticon by giving data to private AI company. Banjo is applying artificial intelligence to government-owned surveillance and traffic cameras across the entire state of Utah to tell police about anomalies. The state of Utah has given an artificial intelligence company real-time access to state traffic cameras, CCTV, and public safety cameras, 911 emergency systems, local data for state-owned vehicles, and other sensitive data. The company, called Banjo, says that it was combining this data with information collected from social media, satellites, and other apps. It claims its algorithm detects anomalies in the real world. The lofty goal of Banjo's system is to alert law enforcement of crimes as they happen. It claims it does this while somehow stripping all personal data from the system, allowing it to help cops without putting anyone's privacy at risk. As with other algorithmic crime systems, there is little public oversight or information about how exactly the system determines what is worth alerting cops to. Banjo also says that AI can help police solve child kidnapping cases in seconds, identify active shooter situations as they happen, potentially send an alert when there's a traffic accident, airbag deployment, fire, or a car driving the wrong way down the road. It says it also has a solution for homelessness and can help with the opioid epidemic by detecting opioid events. It offers AI processing of state-owned audio sensors that include but may not be limited to speech recognition and natural language processing, as well as an automatic scene detection, object recognition, vehicle detection on real-time video footage pulled from Utah's cameras. Basically, in July, Banjo signed a 5-year, $20.7 million contract with Utah to get unprecedented access to all this data that the state collects. That's pretty scary, folks. Basically, leaders in conservative Utah have swan dived into predictive policing and surveillance by granting a private company access to virtually all of its data systems and cameras in the state. This is technocracy at work, and it reveals the deepest level of bonding between private and public entities. And that was a quote from the TN editor. Also, President Trump nixes extending current FISA surveillance law. Donald Trump, President Trump, told top House and Senate Republicans on Tuesday evening that he would not support a clean extension of federal surveillance powers and called for them to work out a deal with Democrats on how to move forward. GOP leaders are already talking about a potential 30-day extension of provisions in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act while they try to hammer out a deal with the Democrats. Trump's comments in an hour-plus meeting on Tuesday night came despite a push from Attorney General William Barr to modify the law administratively to appease the president, who has railed in the past against the spying law after authorities used it to monitor an associate of his 2016 campaign. Folks, as many as you know, the FISA Act has been greatly abused in recent years and is full of loopholes, and it allows bad actors to misuse the system for their political purposes, including spying on Americans, period, anybody they want. The current FISA legislation is due to expire in 2 weeks, and I hope it crashes and burns. Google. The creepy line and the 2020 elections. The creepy line is a particularly sinister term used in an unguarded remark by former Google CEO Eric Schmidt in 2010. In hindsight, what is most disturbing about the comment is how casually he explained Google's policy regarding invading the privacy of its customers and clients. Google's policy on a lot of these things, Schmidt said in about 45 seconds into the introduction, is to get right up to the creepy line and not cross it. You can watch this video via Technocracy News in the description box below. It's about an 80-minute documentary. In the film, you will discover how Google acquired an enormous and permanent cache of data about users. Initially, the data was used to refine search algorithms used to help index the websites and information uploaded to the web. Now, however, it is used to fine-tune ads and content that most suits your interest, storing the information to better provide content suggestions for you. This film also will give you a really disquieting idea about what else they may be doing with your data. So Google has the power to sway elections, but is it already using it in the 2020 election cycle? I guarantee they probably are doing this right now. The nature of the creepy line is comparable to the Twilight Zone, where reality and illusion are blurred to the point that it is impossible to know for sure. And last article for the day, ALEC, A-L-E-C, behind push for mandatory vaccinations. It's coming, folks. They're going to use this media crisis of coronavirus and COVID-19 to initiate their agenda to vaccinate the entire Earth's populace. Over the last several months, Americans have witnessed an increase in media propaganda regarding the dangers of anti-vaxxers, the proven science of vaccines, and the tragedies that ensue from the failure to vaccinate. That propaganda blitz has resulted in massive hysteria stemming from similar levels of ignorance. Also resulting from the push by Big Pharma-funded corporate media outlets is the emotional and panicked campaign of pro-vaxxers, vaccine pushers, and adherents to the relatively recent new religion of scientism. The religious belief in anything labeled as science or scientific, regardless of whether or not that concept directly contradicts observable reality and experience, or even regardless of whether or not it is actually scientific. The so-called vaccine debate, which is not truly a debate, since a debate requires participation of two opposing sides, is generally nothing more than a shouting and shaming campaign against parents who have come to the conclusion that vaccines are not safe, effective, or neither. Indeed, it is the unbridled emotions of the pro-vaccine camp that has been provoked and subsequently harnessed into a powerhouse of vitriol and social pressure that it is, when presented as a public health crisis, the howling of the trendy masses glued to their television, sitcoms, and NPR is then presented as an organic public outcry in the media, resulting from the conveniently timed response of politicians and lawmakers. Of course, with the creation of the false debate, there is also a political polarization of this issue. The left must be pitted against the right in a typical but tried and true method of divide and conquer strategy. Satan's footprints, folks. Originally, holding questions regarding the safety or effectiveness of vaccinations was something that bridged political boundaries. Granted, the individuals who held these views were a minority. However, those numbers were growing and could be found in the midst of liberals and conservatives, libertarians and socialists, and even those completely unaligned to any ideology. Now, however, that is beginning to change. The big pharma companies that fund the mainstream media and the political parasites infecting the Fed and state capitals have managed to turn this debate into a partisan issue. The propaganda campaign has been successful among members of all political denominations, but particularly among the left. This is because the left is made up of a population that is well trained to believe anything presented to them under the guise of science, in much the same way as the right, who are designed to believe anything presented in a religious context. The result of this massive absorption of indoctrination is that we have the passage of bills mandating that children be vaccinated by force of law in California, and even the attempt to force adults to be vaccinated as well. These mandates coming out of California, North Carolina, and Vermont. Clearly, there is a nationwide agenda afoot. But while those on the left continue to attack Koch Industries and ALEC for funding a number of horrific economic policies and divisive domestic campaigns, painting any idea they oppose coming from Republican camps as a Koch-funded or Koch-funded, however you say that, program, the reality is that the leftists are the biggest dupes in the vaccine game. So for those of you who are not familiar with ALEC, it's the American Legislative Exchange Council. This council is considered a nonprofit organization made up of conservative state legislators and corporate private sector partners. This mixture of government officials and corporate agents then meet regularly, replete with funding from major corporations all across the world, to discuss, plan, and write and submit legislation that is beneficial to the corporations. In one sense, ALEC is a massive corporate lobbying firm. In another, however, ALEC is much more. Since much of the legislation submitted by the attentive congressmen is actually written for the senator or representative by the agents of the organization. It is an organization that provides funding and direction or marching orders for congressmen, particularly those at the state level. While slimy billionaires like George Soros act as the guiding force behind much of the American left, ALEC and Koch industries tend to fill the same void for the right. In truth, most of the corporations that make up ALEC are those who also fund Democratic candidates. Presentations, however, are in carefully crafted political theaters like the U.S. is paramount. In the article in the description box below from technocracy.news, you'll find a very small list of pharmaceutical companies that are a part of ALEC's operation. All of these having big dollar signs in their eyes to enforce vaccines on every human being on the earth. So like I said in the beginning, government-mandated and forced vaccinations are most certainly coming thanks to China's coronavirus pandemic. It is the key to recognize that lobbyists like ALEC have been pushing state legislation for mandated vaccines for years. It is also key to note that ALEC is a conservative, Republican-based organization, which demonstrates the political transcendency of technocrat initiatives, folks. It's coming. You better know where you stand with the Lord. I fully believe and have faith in Yahweh that if I'm going to get sick with COVID-19 or whatever else, I am quite happy being in the hands of my Father in heaven and His Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. I'm not going to be putting anything in this body because this is where the Holy Spirit dwells, is inside of my body. So I don't want to contaminate it. I want the Holy Spirit to live with me forever and ever. I hope all of this news has helped you to see that you just can't trust mainstream media, because I bet you about 3/4 of this information you didn't even know was going on. So I hope you'll join me again for more news that you may not have heard, coming again hopefully on Monday. Yahweh bless you all. Have a blessed weekend and take care.